Module 3, Lesson 10, Writing and Interpreting Inequality Statements Involving Rational Numbers. So by the time we're finished with the lesson, hopefully you will be able to write and explain inequality statements involving rational numbers, and you will be able to justify and explain inequality statements involving rational numbers using number lines and your knowledge of rational numbers. So we're going to pretend that I have some money in my pocket, and I'm going to tell you that the amount of money that I have is less than $5, but it's greater than $4. What is one possible value for the amount of money in my pocket? Pause the video, think about that for a moment. I'm going to say one possible value is $4.75, 4 and 75 hundredths. Part B, write an inequality statement comparing the possible value of the money in my pocket to $4. When we talk about an inequality statement, we have equal, but then we have not equal. So we're not going to use an equal sign. We're going to use a greater than, a less than, or a greater than, and we are going to compare to $4. So go ahead, pause the video and write an inequality statement, then compare yours with mine. 475 is greater than 4, or I could say that 4 is less than 475. And then write an inequality statement comparing the possible value of the money in my pocket to $5. So doing the same thing, but this time we are comparing to 5. Go ahead, pause the video. 5 is greater than 4 and 75 hundredths. 4 and 75 hundredths is less than 5. We are going to use these three answers for this next exercise. On exercise 1, we are going to graph our answer from part A, which was the 475. We are going to put that on our number line. I am going to pick a spot, and I am going to call that spot 475. All right, pick a spot. I will call that 4 and 75 hundredths. For exercise 2, I need to graph the points 4 and 5 on my number line. I know that 4 and 75 hundredths is between 4 and 5. I know that 75 hundredths is equal to 3/4. So if this is 3/4 and this is half and this is 1/4, then this would be the 4. So 4 and 1/4, 4 and a half, 4 and 3/4, and this would be the 5. I have added my 4 and 75 hundredths, I have added my 4, I have added my 5. Explain in words how the location of the three numbers on the number line support the inequality statements you wrote in the opening exercises parts B and D. So how does this number line support the statement that 4 is less than 4 and 75 hundredths and 5 is greater than 4 and 75 hundredths? I know on a number line, the farther to the right that I go, the greater the value. So 4 and 75 hundredths is to the right of 4. 4 and 75 hundredths is greater than 4, or I can say that 4 is to the left of 4 and 75 hundredths. 4 is less than 4 and 75 hundredths. 5 is to the right of 4 and 75 hundredths, so it is greater. 5 is greater than 4 and 75 hundredths. Or I could say that 4 and 75 hundredths is to the left of 5, so it is less than 5. Using things we've learned in other lessons about how the number line is constructed, I can make statements of comparison, write inequality statements. Write one inequality statement that shows the relationship among all three numbers. 4 and 75 hundredths, 5. Instead of writing 4 is less than 4 and 75 hundredths and 5 is greater than 4 and 75 hundredths, we are going to combine all of this together. We are going to read the number line from left to right. 4 and 75 hundredths, 5. 4 is less than 4 and 75 hundredths. 4 and 75 hundredths is less than 5. I have now combined two inequality statements into a single inequality statement. I could read the number line from right to left. 5, 4 and 75 hundredths, and 4. 5 is greater than 4 and 75 hundredths, and 4 and 75 hundredths is greater than 4. One very nice thing about writing these statements where everything is combined together is I now know that 5 is greater than 4 and 75 hundredths, but it is also greater than 4. I know that 4 is less than 4 and 75 hundredths, but I also know that it is less than 5. These complex statements where we have a few more parts working share lots of information if we take a moment to look at them. Write one inequality statement to show the relationship among the following shoe sizes: 10.5, 8, and 9. One inequality statement. So first I'm going to list them from least to greatest. A number line might help me a little bit. I know that these are all positive numbers, so I will tuck my 0 away and on the left-hand side. I know that 10.5 is the greatest of the three numbers. I know that 9 is greater than 8. Using my number line, I can write my numbers from least to greatest: 8, 9, 10, and a half. Now I can add my inequality statements. 8 is less than 9, 9 is less than 10 and a half. On example 1b, it says write them from greatest to least. So I will take my number line. I will write it in the direction of right to left. 10 and a half, 9, and 8. 10 and a half is greater than 9. 9 is greater than 8. Example 2. Mary is comparing the rainfall totals for May, June, and July. The data is reflected in the table below. Fill in the blanks below to create inequality statements that compare the changes in total rainfall for each month. The rightmost column of the table. The directions say I am comparing this third column. I'm going to take a moment here and analyze this table. So it says this year's total rainfall and last year's total rainfall. So in a location, in May, last year it rained 2 3/10 inches. In the same, this year, it rained 2 3/10 inches. Last year in the same location it rained 3 7/10 inches. So last year had more rain than this year. Same location. This year in June it rained 3 8/10 inches. Last year it rained 3 5/10 inches, so it rained more in that location this year than it did last year. Same location in July. This year it rained 3 7/10 inches. Last year it rained only 3 2/10 inches, so once again this year had more rainfall. So looking at what I'm supposed to do now that I've analyzed the table, I am supposed to write one equality to order the changes in total rainfall from least to greatest. So I am looking at this column right here, and I am supposed to put this information in order from least to greatest. I have one negative number, so I know that that is going to come first. I now need to compare 3/10 and 5/10. And I know that 3/10 is closer to 0, so it will be less than 5/10, which leaves 5/10 as the greatest. I now need to add my inequality statements. -1 4/10 is less than 3/10, and 3/10 is less than 5/10. Same information, looking at the same column, but now we are writing from greatest to least. I need to use what I did on the last problem, and I need to write it in the opposite order. 5/10 is the greatest, followed by 3/10, followed by -1 4/10. 5/10 is greater than 3/10, and 3/10 is greater than -1 4/10. Mark's favorite football team lost yards on 2 back-to-back plays. They lost 3 yards on the first play. They lost 1 yard on the second play. Write an inequality statement using integers to compare the forward progress made on each play. Well, I know that they didn't actually go forward on each of these, they lost. So both of these are going to be negative numbers. On the first play, they lost 3 yards, that's a -3. On the second play, they lost 1 yard, that's a -1. I now need to write an inequality that will compare these integers. -3 is less than -1, or -1 is greater than -3. If I look at these on a number line, I'll put a 0 on the right because both of my numbers are negative. I have -1, -2, and -3. I am comparing -1 and -3. -1 is to the right of -3. It is closer to 0 and it's moving to the right. And as I go right on the number line, the numbers get greater. -1 is to the right of -3, so -1 is greater than -3. If I go left, the farther left I go, the less the numbers. -3 is to the left of -1, so it is less. Sierra had to pay the school for 2 textbooks that she lost. One textbook cost $55 and the other cost $75. Her mother wrote 2 separate checks for each expense. Write 2 integers that represent the change to her mother's checking account balance. Then, write an inequality statement that shows the relationship between these 2 numbers. When I write a check and it comes out of my checking account, that is a negative number for my checking account. So one textbook is -$55 and the other one is -$75. So I have written 2 integers that represent the change to the mother's checking account. I now need to write an inequality statement that will show the relationship between these two integers. Quick look at my number line. Negative 55, negative 10, negative 20, negative 30, negative 40, negative 50, and negative 55. I'll move my negative 55 over just a little bit. If I keep counting, negative 60, negative 70, negative 75. The negative 55 is to the right on the number line of the negative 75. So negative 55 is greater than negative 75. Or I could say that negative 75 is less than negative 55. Either of those inequality statements would be true. Jason ordered the numbers negative 70, negative 18, and negative 18 and a half from least to greatest by writing the following statement. Negative 18 is less than negative 18 and a half, which is less than negative 70. First question, is this true? Second, you need to explain if you believe it is true or false. Pause, take a moment, and think your way through that. Jason's statement is false. If I place these numbers on a number line and started counting from 0, the first number I would get to would be negative 18. Then I would get to the negative 18 and 5/10, and then I would get to the negative 70. Remembering that the farther left I go, the less the number, negative 70 is actually the least, followed by negative 18 and a half, followed by negative 18. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, where did Jason go wrong with his thinking? I think Jason forgot that the order for negative numbers is opposite the order for positive numbers. If these had each been positive numbers, then Jason has them in the right order. But I think he forgot when you come over to the negative side of the number line that everything is reversed. Well, it looks like a duplicate slide. I'll need to take that out at some point. Exercise 8. Write a real-world situation that is represented by the following inequality. Negative 19 is less than 40. Explain the position of the numbers on a number line. Well, let's see. I spent $19 on a date with my wife to the movies. I received a gift of $40 for my birthday. So on a number line, I have the $40 that I received, which is a positive for me, and I have the negative $19 that I spent, which is a negative for me. 40 is to the right of the negative 19 on the number line, so it is greater. The negative 19 is to the left of the 40, so it is less. In class, we would have a sprint activity that we would complete. I am not going to try and do that as an online video. Let's see though, it skipped We already did that part. Okay, here we go. If you decided to look at the sprint, here are a couple of examples. There are three numbers that need to be properly placed in the boxes. The comparison is less than. -1 is less than -1/4, which is less than 0. Same three numbers, but we are placing them in the opposite order. 0 is greater than -1/4, which is greater than -1. What can you do before writing an inequality statement involving three numbers that makes it easier to write the inequality statement? For example, explain the process for writing one inequality statement comparing -3, 8, and -10. Pause and think about that for a moment. The strategy that I have modeled for you is put them on a number line. If we take the numbers and put them on a number line, we can see the order that they will need to be in when we write our inequality statement. If you know the order of a set of numbers, how do you represent the order using inequality symbols? Well, we put them in order from least to greatest, for example, -10, -3, and 8, and then we use the comparison symbols. It used to be you would just put commas in between them to separate them. And maybe you didn't even put commas. Maybe you just wrote them in order from least to greatest. Now you have been introduced to these inequality symbols to make clear the relationship between the numbers in the set. If two negative numbers are ordered using the less than symbol, what must be true about their positions on a horizontal number line? I have two negative numbers. They are compared using the less than symbol. So what must be true? Go ahead and pause and think about that for a moment. The first number, for example, if I had -5 and -3, -5 is less than -3. The first number, the number that is less than, has to be to the left of the other number on the number line. If we're using the less than symbol and they are negative numbers, whatever number is on the left is to the left of whatever number is on the right, because that's what less than means, farther left on the number line. If it was a vertical number line, the first number would be farther below. The farther down we go the number line, go down on the number line, the less the number is. Quick relook at the I can statements. Hopefully you are feeling okay about writing and explaining inequality statements involving rational numbers. The big important part is being able to get them on a number line. The more you work with number lines, the better you are able to visualize them without having to draw a number line. Hopefully you can use number lines and words to justify and explain inequality statements involving rational numbers using number lines and your knowledge of rational numbers. That concludes Module 3, Lesson 10. Make sure you complete your problem set and your exit ticket. If you have questions or need help, please make sure that you reach out to your teacher.